Hey everyone, welcome to day 28. I'm Gaurav, and in today's session, we'll be learning about CSS in JS, and we'll build a simple contacts app using the combination of routing and the CSS in JS library known as Emotion. Okay, so let me know in the comments how you guys are doing, and we'll begin with today's session. So the first thing that we'll be looking at today is CSS in JS. So basically, what this allows us to do is that we can write, CSS, write, right inside our JavaScript file, and we are able to do this using CSS modules, and there are plenty of libraries available which allow us to do this. So one such library is known as Emotion, right? So not only can you use it with React, you can use it with vanilla JavaScript as well. So this is the documentation for that, for this library. And the thing which is of interest to us is the CSS prop. Okay, and so it allows us to do something like this. Suppose we have a div, right? And we can specify CSS, and then we can specify all the properties like this. Okay, and it will generate a class right within JavaScript. You don't need to write a separate class for it, and that class will have all of these properties. The benefit of this is that you will have all of your logic in one place, especially when it comes to React. So you have your, for example, we take a component, right? So the HTML associated with that component, which we represent as JSX, right? So that is that is right there in the component file. Then the CSS for that particular component, that also we can include using Emotion or a CSS in JS library right in the same place, and the logic related to that component is also in the same place. So everything is in one place related to a particular component. And the other benefit is that we whenever we use CSS in JS, it creates a class which has a random name, right? So there will be no name collisions happening due to more, I mean, multiple classes having the same name. So all of those issues that we get because of name collisions or CSS rules, I mean classes which have the same name but they appear at different position within your style sheets. So all of those issues are resolved, and it becomes very easy to keep track of your component. The logic is in one place, the CSS is in one place, and the HTML is in one place, right? So this is the missing piece to the puzzle, which that earlier we had, we were using React, we had JSX and the logic in one place. Now we can even have CSS in the same place, right? And it allows us to use you know SAS kind of styling, where we can just specify ampersand, which would represent the rule itself or the element itself, and then we can target additional pseudo classes like hover or focus, etc. All of those classes we can target. And we can also use it in this format where we can use the CSS function which is provided from this library, and we can specify a template literal syntax, and then we can use camel case properties just like how we write normal CSS. Otherwise we can also write it like this, where the properties are camel cased. All right. So these are the various syntaxes, and you can define elements. For example, here we're creating a styled paragraph, and that paragraph has some default styling which we're specifying over here. And we can also this component can also accept the props, and then we can override the styles, and we can create another component which basically has some more additional styling on top of the paragraph that we have defined over here. So there are lots of features available. We'll take a look at some of them. uh, so let's take a look at some of the examples. So what we will do is we are inside. So I've already started a Wheat app. The setup has been done. So let's try and install the packages required in order to make emotion work, right? So the first thing that we need to do is npm add at the rate emotion slash react. Okay, so it will install that package. Then the next thing that we need to do is we need to say pnpm uh, add this as a development dependency, and we need the emotion slash babel plugin. Okay, so we need to do this because by default it by default this css in js syntax would not be understood by the browser, so we make use of babel, which allows us to which makes the browser understand the css, and it converts the css in js syntax into regular css classes, so that it is understood by the browser. Okay, so we have the plugin installed over here and the library installed over here. Then we need to make a small change inside the weep config. So here we need to say uh, JSX import source, and we will specify that as emotion slash react. And then afterwards what we need to do is we need to specify a configuration for babel, and here we will specify the plugins, and we are using the emotion slash babel plugin. Okay, and this needs to be an object. All right, let me run this again. So our app has loaded. Let me get rid of the default styling and index as well. All right, so all of the changes are in place. Let's see how we can make use of this library. So we looked at different ways by which we can do things, right? So for example, we want to create a we want to give some sort of styling over here, so we can make use of the css prop. And then here we have options between two syntaxes. Either we can say css function like this, and then we can provide an object over here, Okay, so suppose I want this div to have a color background color of say light gray, and I want the text color to be white. Okay, so you can see that it has applied the styling to this component, and let's see what is happening over here. So you can see over here we have this, some random class name, or a carefully generated class name, which is generated by the emotion library, and it is applying these styles which we had set to this particular element. Okay, so we have we have the logic over here. We have the CSS right within the component, and the display logic as well, the JSX as well. So everything is in one place. And then suppose what I want to do is I want to say that when I am hovering over this element, so I will say ampersand, and then on hover. So I want to define styling when we are hovering over this element. Then I can say that the background color is royal blue, for example. Okay, so now when I'm hovering over this, you can see that the background color changes to royal blue. So you can even target pseudo selectors such as hover, active, etc., and you can define them over here like this. And suppose what else I want to do, I want to set the cursor to pointer, so I'm getting auto completion as well, right? And you can see that the mouse cursor changes whenever I am hovering over this element, right? uh, the other way, another thing that I can do over here is suppose I have more elements over here. Suppose I have a section and it has a heading. This is a section and it has a paragraph. This is a para, for example. Okay, and what I want to do over here is let's take a look at the other way where we can make use of the template literal syntax. So we just write CSS and then we use the backticks, and here we can say something like display, and we want to say display as grid, for example. So just like how we write regular CSS, it works in the same fashion. And we want to specify, for example, grid template rows, and we want to say that the first row is taking up as much space as it requires, and the next one takes up 200 pixels. Okay, and yeah, let's see what is happening now. So you can see that the first row is taking up as much space as it needs, and this one is taking up the remaining of the space, and we have the grid class being applied over here. So both of these syntaxes are working, and suppose we want to do something like um, so we want to reuse some styles, right? So we can have a variable over here, const reusable CSS equals, so we can provide the CSS function over here, or we can provide the backtick like this. And then suppose I want to define a style for say a button which has a primary button, for example, right? So what I can do is, or rather I want to define the style as primary, and then I can say background color in that case is royal blue, and the color is white. Okay, and then suppose I have another div. Let's move all of this inside the fragment, and then we have another div, right, which has a button, and I can specify that, this button is a primary sort of a button, and this is a, or we can say just primary over here, for example. And you can see that that button has that class, background color. What did we, right? So when we're using the template literal syntax, you do not specify double quotes for the properties. You can use them as it is, right? So you can see that, this button has that style. Or what we can do is we can have a style as button, and we can say that the color is white. There is a padding of 8 pixels, right? And here we can say that this is a button, right? You can see that this has been applied, and then we can say that primary button, for example, or rather we just have this primary style, and this is equals to CSS, and here we can specify that the background color is royal blue. Okay, and here we can have multiple classes like this. So you can see that this button has the button class as well as the primary class. Hang on a sec, what did we, so here we can do something like this. um, just a second, I'm just cross checking something. All right, I'll get back to you guys about this particular point, but the idea is that we can basically have We can have reusable classes as well. You can define them at one place, and then wherever you need it, you can, specify that particular styling information. Okay, we'll take a look at how we can reuse multiple classes together as well. I'll get back to you guys with that particular point, but suppose we have another element which needs that, right? So that particular style can be reused. So for example, we have uh, a link, and we're showing the text. This is a link, and we can specify the CSS as primary over here. So you can see that it has this blue kind of a background. So wherever you need a specific a style which you want to reuse, so you can basically define it in a variable, and then you can export it, and you can import it at the places where you need it. Okay, so these are some of the benefits of using CSS in JS, right? Now let's move on to building our contact app using a combination of routing and this emotion library. Okay, so let me open, let me set that up. So we will say cd dot dot, and we are going to say pnpm create wheat, and we want to call this project as contacts app. We will use React, JavaScript, and we will switch to that folder, cd contacts app, and we will say pnpm install. So it's doing that installation, and here we will run the same commands to set up emotion. So we will say pnpm add emotion, and then pnpm, yeah, add the babel plugin for that. So all of that has been done. Then here what we will do is we'll go inside Vite config, we'll copy this from here and paste it over here. All right, and we also need to install the uh, React router DOM package, right? So we'll do that as well. So pnpm add React router DOM. Okay, so it has done that. Let's see if our app is working. So pnpm dev. There seems to be an error related to this plugin. Let's just check. So okay, we want, oh wait, hang on, we're in the wrong folder. Cd dot dot cd contacts app, and here we need to run those commands. uh, yeah, we need to add emotion, and then we need to add emotion react. Okay, now let's try and rerun the project. Yeah, now it's working correctly. All right, so the setup has been done, and let's clear the things, and let's clear app. H1 contacts app. All right, so all of this is working. Now let's set up the routing for this. So what we will be doing is we'll come inside main. We will set up the routing information. Okay, so for that we will make use of a function over here. We need to create a router. Const router equals create what is it called, create browser router. Okay, it's not auto importing it. Let me do it from here. Import create browser router from React router DOM. Hang on a sec, let's just check if that has been installed. Okay, we also need to install React router DOM. So we'll say npm add React router DOM. Okay, that is why the auto completion wasn't working. Okay, let's just check create router. Okay, yeah. So this package is available. So we want to create the browser router. And then what we want to do is we want to make use of another function, create routes from elements. And here we can specify the routing information. So we will use the route element. Okay, and let's check if this is working. So path equals slash, and the element that we want to use is we want to display the app element in this scenario. Okay, and let's test if it is showing other routes as well. So route path equals slash contact. Okay, yeah, need to close this one. And here we need to specify the element that we want to show with this route, and we will just say div contacts like this. Okay, then what we need to do is we need to import another component, provider router provider, which is from the same package. And we want to say that the router that we want to use is the one which we have created using this function. Okay, router. So if you're wondering why we are doing all of this, where is all of this information coming from? So all of this has been provided in the uh, React router documentation. So we have this function, right? Create browser router. Either you can specify it as an object, okay, or you can make use of the create browser router from elements, and you can make use of you can specify the routes using components. Okay, whichever way you feel you're comfortable with, you can take that approach. Both the approaches are fine. Okay, and all of the links related to this have been provided in the resources, so you guys can go through that and decide which approach you would like to use. So we are trying to use the approach that we followed yesterday. uh, and the reason why we're doing this, because this is a recent change in the latest version of React Router DOM. They have added some more functionality which is not available in the way that we had set up the routing yesterday. Although it is quite similar, but some of the functionality is not available, and we'll see what some of those functions are which you can use when you create the browser router like this. So let's see if the routing is working. So here we have the default one. So we wanted to render the app, right? And let me just change the text over here so you guys don't get confused. This is app. So you can see that when we are at the root level, we are showing the app, and then when we are saying contact, we can see this text contacts, right? So routing has been set up and it is working correctly. Now what we will do is we will define a layout for our app. So we'll create a component function layout, and here what we would like to do is we want to return a fragment. Okay, so we have our main element over here, and the main element has a site nav. So we'll call that as an aside. Rather, let's do one thing. Yeah, let's call it as an aside for now. Aside. And then we have a section which is for the content. Okay. So let's come to the main app, and here what we want to do is, instead of showing the app, we will use the layout that we have defined. So export layout, and here we will say layout. Okay, and this will be the main route, and within this we will have nested routes. So what we want to do is we want to display the list of contacts. All right, and we want to get those using we want to fetch a particular contact using its ID. So we will specify a contact ID over here. So we have created a nested route over here, right? And by default we'll be showing the layout, and we'll be displaying the contacts over here when we go inside contacts. And we have this, right? So let's set that up as well. So we need to import this component, and here what we will do is, this is the section for our component, right? So since we are using nested routes, okay, uh, if I go to the main one, we're seeing the layout, right? Let me just type some text over here. Side nav. Okay, layout is not defined. Main.jsx. Okay, so some issue with refreshing. So basically we have this layout setup, right? So this is the main element, then we have the aside for the side navigation, and then we have the section. Okay, and over here we want to display the contents, so let's style this a little bit. Let's go inside app.jsx, and for the main, let's give this some styling, and we'll make use of the CSS style, and we will say display grid. Then we want to specify the grid template columns. So we want that the aside should take up whatever is the minimum or the maximum between what do you say 250 pixels and one fraction, and for the other one we will specify it should take up the remaining, so not 250, 25%, and the other column should take up the remaining space. All right, let's save this. So we are inside the grid, and you can see that this is taking up 250 pixels or 25%, and the rest of the space is taken up by this element, right? The other element. And here what we want to do is we want to display the contacts app, right? So we will make use of the outlet so that our nested route is being shown, right? Let me comment this out for now. And suppose we go back to main, we have seen that the nested route is slash contact slash id, for example, 1. So it is going to that route, rather it should be contacts, right? So it is going to that route, but it is not showing anything over here, whereas it was expected that we should see the text contacts, right? That is because we don't have uh, the outlet over here. So let me uncomment this, and now you can see that we can see the text contacts. Okay. um, so let's move these into their own components. So let's call this as side nav, and basically what this does is that it is returning an aside, and this has a header, uh, and then there's a section for the list of contacts and you can show a footer over here as well, footer for example, and we will replace this with the side nav component. App is not defined. Okay, yeah, so we don't need this anymore. All right, so we have done that cleanup, and now you can see that we have list of contacts and footer, and let's work on this part now. Let's go inside the layout, and let's create another component, content, which basically returns the this section with the outlet. Okay, so let's place that over here, and instead we will specify contents. Okay, and now suppose we go to slash contacts slash one, so you can see that it is still showing that text. Okay, let's add some so if you see over here, uh what is it, index.html, let's try and remove the styling for the body, and we'll add some sort of styling over here because these are not part of the JS, the JS file. So we'll add some styling over here. Go to index, we will specify that um, the root, just a sec, yeah. So by default we want to say that this and all the elements which have the before and after pseudo elements, we will specify the pseudo classes, box sizing as border box, and for the body we will say that the margin is 0, and we will say font family as let's use this font family, and for the root element we will specify the height as 100 viewport height. Okay, so we have this setup, right? Okay, now what we want to do over here is we want to fetch the data. We want to show some items over here inside the side nav. So inside the header we will have a form. Okay, and we will have a input, and we will have a button so that we can search the contacts from the contacts list. All right, and we will have the text search. Okay, and what we will do here is that let's define some styling over here. So we'll say CSS equals CSS, and we will specify that this has a padding of 16 pixels. Then we'll say that let's give it a border at the right of 1 pixel and solid. So we have this over here, and let's say display grid. And what we want to do is we want to divide these into rows, right? So we will say grid template rows. So this will take up as much space that it needs. This will take up a fraction, and this will take up as much space as it needs. Okay, and the other thing that we want to do over here is that this has a height of 100%. So you can see that we have specified the height for our grid, and this is taking up 100% of the space which is available. So now we will have this search bar and the list of contacts and the footer. And for the header, let's define some styling over here. CSS, we'll say border, bottom, 1 pixel, solid. Okay. Actually, let's not specify the, yeah, let's keep the padding and we'll say margin -16. Not margin, we will specify the padding. Uh, let's not do it here. Okay. Now here we will say that CSS, and we will specify that CSS, we'll say display flex and justify content space between. Okay. All right. So there's some spacing between the two. And we want to say that there is some margin, some padding over here as well. So padding of 8 pixels. Okay, so this part is done. Okay, then we want to display some contacts over here, and let's style the footer as well. So CSS border top 1 pixel solid. All right, so we have the spacing for that as well. Let's do one thing. Let's get rid of this, and instead we will give the padding in over here inside. Okay, so we'll specify the padding over here. Padding 16, and for this the padding is 16 pixels as well. And the same we will be doing for this part also, for the list of contacts. So CSS padding of 16 pixels. All right, so all of this area has been set up. Now let's work on displaying the contacts. So inside this section, what we will do is we'll create a new component, contact contact list dot jsx rfc, and this is fine for now. We'll render that over here, contact list. Okay, so we can see that text over here, and what we want to do is we want to fetch some data. So we'll make use of this random user API. Okay, what this allows us to do is that it randomly generates certain users, and we can use that information to uh, display some contacts. So for example, we are interested in say 500 or say 50 contacts information, right? So we will specify that over here, and it is giving us the information for 50 contacts. Now what we want is We are interested in so this is this name of the seed, right? Name of the seed. And we will say that so this is a random user API basically. So every time you hit this API, if you see over here, the first name is Gabe, right, and last name is Kim. If I hit this again, it will give me some other name like Alexis and Oliver. So all of the data is randomly generated, but what we want is we want a fixed set of data. So here what we will do is we will say and seed uh, equals whatever is the name of this seed, right? For example, this, or you can give some other text also. So every time we will get the same values. So now first name is Alexis and last is Oliver. If I hit this URL again, we're getting the same result, right? And what we want to do is we want to uh, include certain fields. We're not interested in all the fields. So let's take a look at this particular the result returned by this. Let's go to jsonhero.io. Let's provide the URL over here, and these are all the results, right? And these are all the different fields that we are getting from this API. So we are interested in name, right? So we'll pick that one. We are interested in the email, and we are interested in the cell number, the ID, and the picture. Okay. And another thing that we can do is we can specify a specific nationality. So what do we have? ID dot value. Yeah, but or we can have people from different countries also. But all in all, we're interested in some general data, right? So we can say include the name, the email, ID, and the picture, as well as the cell. Okay, these are the fields that we are interested in. So now we have a much uh, you know concise data, right? So you can see now only those fields which we had selected, only those fields are available. So I'll just share this link with you guys on the chat. You can try it out and you can view all of the fields. Okay, all right. So we'll make use of this URL to get the information. So one of the benefits of using this approach of create browser router is that we can load the data associated with a route before that component is rendered, and then that data can be made available inside that component using some special hooks. Okay, so let's see what we want to do over here. So we will specify a prop known as loader, right? And we will specify a function over here. Wait, not here. Loader. Wait a sec. What am I doing? Yeah, loader. All right. And let's define a file over here. Let's call them as loaders.js. And let's create a function over here, load, say, for example, contacts. Let's call it as load contacts. And let's pass it the URL. So const URL equals, the URL that we have. Okay. So what we want to do over here is, this is an asynchronous async function. We will fetch all of the data. We'll specify the URL, and we will say const result equals, we'll await the data, and then what we will do is we will say return result uh, dot JSON. We want to convert this into JSON, and let's see what we can do over here. And we need to export this function, and here we will basically just say load contacts. We'll pass the reference to that function over here to the loader, and then what we want to do is when we are inside the layout, so what this allows us to do is any component, right, which is inside this route, it will have that data available to it, which is returned by the loader. So let's go inside this layout component, and we need this data inside the side nav, right? So we will say const, or actually we don't even need it inside the side nav, we need it inside the contacts list. Okay, so we will say over here const contacts equals use loader data. This is a hook, and this will provide us with the data associated, wherever this component comes, uh, and if there is a data available, or if some data is provided by a loader, that particular data can be accessed using this hook. Okay, and for now let's just log this to the console. So contacts, and let's save this, and we also need to save this. Let's go back, let's open the developer tools, and you can see that we are getting the results from here, right? So using the loader, we were able to get the data. We were able to fetch the data programmatically, and we got the results within the component where we needed it. Now if we take a look at the tree, right, so this is our layout, correct, and this is our contacts list, and this layout, where is it, yeah, this layout has the information, right? So we have the route provider, and where is it, the contacts list. It is getting this data from the hook. Okay, and this information is available, and some more data is there, right? So loader data is there. So all of this information is basically available. Okay, and now what we want to do is we want to display this information, right, inside that component. So what we will do here is uh, there is a contacts list. Okay, and here what we will do is we will load all of the contacts and display them. So what we want to do here is we want to return a unordered list which will have some li. So we will check whether contacts are there. If contacts dot length Then what we want to do is we want to say contacts.map. We'll get a particular contact, and we want to, yeah, what we want to do is we want to return li. Otherwise we will return null, and this li will have a key. So let's destructure this. So we are interested in the id, and within the id we are interested in the value, and we are interested in the name, and we want the first and the last, right? And this, all of this we are getting from the contact. Okay, we will set that as the key, and here we will what we want to do is we will make use of a component known as navlink. Okay, and we will specify that the text that we want to show over here, that is the first name space the last name, something like this. Let's see how this is showing up. Okay, nothing is showing up over here. Let's check if there is any error. So no errors. We have the contacts. Okay, wait a sec. So if you take a look over here, it has info as well as the results. This is what we are interested in, right? So we need to change our loader logic slightly, and here we want to say that we are awaiting this result. Once it's available to us, we are interested in the results. Okay. And if the results are not there, we will return, rather let's just return it like this. Okay, so now you can see that we are getting some random names over here, right? Okay, and what we want to do is inside the contacts list, whenever we click on this link, we want to say that we want to navigate to slash contacts slash, we want to specify the contact id, which is the value. Okay, and let's click on this. So you can see that as I'm clicking on a link, the contact id is getting updated. Okay, so there is a contact which does not have a id. Let's do one thing. Let's pick contacts of a particular nationality. So let's say, and any nationality equals, suppose we want to pick all Indians. uh, so we are getting all people who are having the nationality as Indian, and we are displaying all of those names over here, right? So we are clicking on these values, and the IDs are getting updated. Okay, all right, so now let's style this part a bit. um, so here what we want to do is so for our unordered list, we want to specify the CSS prop, And we will say that the list style is none, and we will say that the padding is 0. Okay, and we need to import this from emotion. All right, so this is in place. And for the allies, let's specify some styling over here as well. So CSS equals CSS, and here we want to specify that the width is 100%. Let's take a look how much width is this taking. Okay, so for this particular anchor, actually we need to specify the width. So nothing to be done for this. Let's copy this from here and let's paste it here. And what we want to be able to do is we want to say the display for this is block, because by default anchor element is inline style, right? So we want to display this to, we want to set this as block. We want to specify some padding. Let's make it 4 pixels, for example. All right, and we don't want the underline styling, so text decoration, we want to set that to none. And we'll set the color to royal blue. And we want to, what we want to do is when this element has the active class, right? So whenever you're clicking on a particular link, the router the router library, it adds this active class automatically to this element. Okay, so we'll make use of this. So this tells us that this link is active. Okay, this is the link associated with this route. So we will say whenever it is active, we want to give it a background of royal blue. Okay, and we want to specify that the color is white. Okay, so now this particular, whichever route is active, right, it will show that element in this background, and it will have its text as white. All right, and another thing that we want to do is we want to say border radius, let's say 8 pixels, and we want to specify a little bit more of padding. So we want the padding to be 4 pixels from the top, and we want the padding to be 8 pixels from the left and the right. Okay, so this is what we are doing now, right? So the ID is changing, and let's do one thing. Let's give this a definite height. Let's go inside our app, and this is the section. Let's give this a max height say 400 pixels. Okay, and we're still getting a scroll, so we want to say overflow. We want to set the overflow to auto. Okay, all right, so we're getting this horizontal scroll. Let's increase the size a bit more, or let's try, suppose we specify the height as 100% of whatever is available. No, this will not work. You want to specify the height as we'll give the calc function over here. So we know that this, let's try and figure out what's the height for this. So the header has a height of 54, right? And let's say the footer also takes up that much space, approximately. So we will do 100% minus 54 pixels. Let's see what is the value which is getting set. Okay, this did not work. All right, so this needs to be, okay, let's just pick a value right now, say 600 pixels. We can see the calculations later on. Not 600, say 500. Okay, so this seems to be good for now. All right, so this area is scrollable, and we are able to select a particular contact from here. And what we want to be able to do is, when we're typing something over here, it should show the contacts which match this criteria, right? So let's work on this part now, and the logic for this is available here. So what we will do is we will move this inside its own component. So function header, and let's move all of this, and let's return this here. And here we will specify the header component instead. Okay, so this is still working, and what we want to do over here is that we will specify a state over here, const search text comma set search text, okay, equals use state, right? And here what we want to do is value equals search text, and on change this will accept callback, and which is on search change. And what we will do here is that handle, create a function handle search uh, handle change. Whenever that happens, this will get the event, right? So we want to get the value. We will say e dot target and we'll say set search text as the value. And what we want to do is we want to call on search change with the updated text. Okay, and let's call this function over here handle change. Okay, so this is available, and let's style this a bit as well. So CSS equals CSS. We'll specify some padding of not 16, 8 pixels. So this has become larger, and I think this is good for now. And what we want to be able to do is actually, let's not do it like this. Rather, let's give a callback on search, and here we will just set the search text, and whenever the user clicks on this button, right, on click, okay, here we will say that call the on search and pass the value of the pass the search text. Okay, and then inside the side nav, what we will do is we will get this from here. So search term comma set search term equals use state. Actually, let's keep all of that information uh, at this level. Actually, let's get rid of the state from here. We'll lift this state up. We'll not keep it here. Okay, we'll just say that whenever this is changing, we want to basically trigger that action. Okay, so what we will do here is that we will say over here on search, whenever the user clicks on the search button, we will just make use of that functionality. What we want to do is we will keep a reference of that element. Okay, so const search element ref equals use ref, and we'll set this to null, And here we will specify that ref equals search element ref, and here we will say on search element ref dot current dot value. That is what we will pass whenever the user clicks on this button. Okay, and here what we will do is we will have to provide a callback. So function on search, and this gets the search text, right? And we will specify a state over here, const search text comma set search text equals use state. Initially we'll set this as empty. Whenever the whenever the user clicks on search, right, we will basically specify over here that set search text, whatever is the search text coming from this parameter, let's just call it as text. So whatever is that text, we will pass it. All right, and uh, this particular value on search we will give the reference here, and our contacts list component that will get the search term as a prop, which is nothing but the text search text, or rather let's just call this as search text also. And then based on the value that the user is getting, search text, we will filter this out. Okay, so const filtered contacts equals contacts dot length, or rather we will check if we're getting some result from this, otherwise we'll return an empty array, and then we will just call the filter function on this. We will check whether uh, contact dot, what was it, you will see const first comma last equals contact, and we will check whether first dot includes, what are we trying to use, this is a string, right? So string dot, yeah, includes, let me just cross check once, double quotes abc dot, yeah, includes, and we will specify the uh, search text, either if that is present in the first name, or if uh, that is present in the last name, right? uh, the search text, right? If it's present in either of these, we will return that particular contact. Okay, and here instead of contacts we will make use of filtered contacts. Okay, and cannot read properties undefined. Search text is not defined. Let's go inside app.jsx. Let's go to console. Let's see all the errors that we're getting. So the first one is this one, input. Okay. So we are no longer in the need for this. All right. What's the next error? Undefined. Yeah, this property we are getting from the name. Okay. So this is working once again. Let's see, suppose I type something like abh search. Oh, wait. So we are using the form tag, right? So since we're using the form tag, what we have to do is whenever the user says, so here we will say function on submit. This will get event, and we will say event dot prevent default, otherwise it will refresh the entire page, right? So we are saying event dot prevent default, and here we will specify that on submit we will call that function on submit, and we don't need this because this is a form element, right? So we'll move this logic in here. We'll call the on search that we are getting as a prop, and let's try this out now. So suppose I search for abh, and 1 second, let's go to our contacts list. Search text, right? So we're getting the search text as abh. Let's see why. Oh wait, here we forgot to switch this. Okay, so now you can see all the contacts which had the text abh in them, they are being shown over here. And suppose let's make another change over here. Let's say dot to lower case, right? We want to make this as case insensitive, so we'll convert this to lowercase as well as this to lowercase, and for the search text we'll convert this to lowercase as well. All right, so now suppose I type ABH. So it is showing all the results which have the matching text, right? Suppose I search for SAHA. So all the contacts which have this text, they're being shown, right? So this is working pretty well, right? And the search functionality is working. Now all we need to do is, when we're selecting a particular contact, we want to display that contact's information over here. So let's work on that part now. um, so for that purpose, what we will do is we'll create another component. Let's call it as contact.jsx function, or rather let's say rfc contact. Okay, and here what we want to do is we'll go inside main. Instead of displaying this, we will display the contact element. What happened? Yeah, it is showing this. And let's go inside this. And here we want to display a section, and we want to specify a loader for this as well. So you will say loader load contact by id. Okay, and here what we will do is we want to pass an id, right? First let's create this function load contact. Let's just call it as contact. And let's go inside the loaders file. Let's duplicate this. Let's call it as load contact, and we specify the contact id here. Once we have all the results, right? So const contacts. Actually, what we can do over here is we can just say const contacts equals function. Since we do not have an API which works just by an ID, we'll reuse this API and we'll just filter it out. Okay, but we'll try to simulate the behavior that we are searching by a particular contact ID, because generally you would call a API and in the URL you would specify the particular contact ID and it would just return that contact. Since we're using an external API and that functionality isn't available, we will basically search through the contacts that we have and return the contact with the matching ID. So we will call load contacts. We will await the result. We'll get all the contacts. Then what we will do is we'll say return contacts dot filter, or rather not filter, we will say contacts dot find. We want to find the contact, where contact dot id dot value equals contact id that we are getting as part of the param. And here we have specified that. Now in order to get this value, right, inside the loader we get a special object known as params. Okay, and what we can do here is we this params will have this as a property. So whatever value is this, whatever value we're getting over here, right, that will be available inside the params object with this as the key. So we can say params dot contact id like this. Okay, let's save all the files and let's go inside the contact element. And since we are getting the data from the loader, we can say const contact equals use loader data, and we should get the data associated with from the with that route, specify returned by the loader associated with that route. So let's see contact. Let's see if this is working. Load contact is not defined. Yeah, we forgot to import this function. Okay, and let's see in the console if we are getting contact. So you can see that we have this particular contact selected, right? So we are seeing the result for that over here. Cell, email, ID, name, and the picture, right? Now using this information, we will display that contacts information over here. Okay, let's do that now. And let's go inside the contact component. And we are interested in the name. The name we will restructure as first and last. And we are also interested in the title. Then we want to get the email, the cell number, and the picture as well. And we are interested in the yeah, let's just keep it as it is. And here what we will do now is let's create a section. mm, let's first check if we are able to see the name. So first and last. Contact is not defined. Yeah. So as we are selecting a particular contact, their name is being shown. I mean, it is showing up over here. And what we will do is, let's say CSS equals CSS, and we will say that the padding is 16 pixels. CSS is not defined. Okay. And so we are seeing the first name and the last name, and we want to show another section here. We will have the image of that contact over here. So we'll specify the source as picture dot large and the alt as the first name. And then we have another section, or rather let's use an article over here, and let's move this here. So we'll have the title and h2 the email and h3 the cell. Okay, so we're getting all of this information associated with this user. The images are random, right? So you might get any random image, as you can see over here. And what we want to do is we want to specify that this is using display as grid, and we will say grid template columns. So the first column takes up around 250 pixels and the next one takes up say 400 pixels, something like this. All right. And let's specify a column gap. of 16 pixels, and I think this is good to go, or rather we can make use of one fraction. Okay, then for the image we will say that CSS equals CSS. We'll say the width is 100%, the height is also 100%, and the object fit we will specify that as contain. Okay, and here we will say CSS equals CSS display flex justify content space evenly, and we want to specify the flex direction as column. Okay, so we are seeing all of this information over here. All right, let's style this a bit. Border 1 pixel solid, light blue for example, and let's give a border radius of 8 pixels, not xppx, and we will specify a margin here as well of 16 pixels. All right, so this is what we have. um, Suppose I want to search for all the names which have the letter V in them, and it is showing me all of those values. All right, so you guys can play around more with this, style it better, and make this app your own, enhance the functionalities. But I wanted to show you how we can make use of a library like emotion, and how we can make use of routing, how we can use loaders to fetch data, and how we can access the data throughout our app. And uh, we can also specify, we learned about nested routes, and we also learned about specifying certain IDs over here. Based on this ID we were fetching that particular contact's information. And if you see over here, if we inspect our app, right, uh, the only thing which changes is this part, right? Every time we click on a particular, where is it, main, this is the side nav, then the UL, then we have this particular section, and this, right? So as we are clicking on a particular contact, only this information is changing, right? And suppose we were to have another route, say for editing a contact's information, so you guys can work on that part as well. So what we would do is we would go inside main, we would define another route over here, and contacts, for example contact, instead of contact we can say edit, and we would specify the contact ID, and we would display the component for editing that contact. So I'll just add a dummy element over here, edit contact, and suppose you have a button over here for edit. Suppose you have a button over here for edit, it will take you to the edit route. And yeah, you can see this text, right? Edit contact. So the only thing which is changing over here is uh, this part, right? If we select a particular contact from here, it is, this part is changing. If we decide to edit it, uh, only this part is changing, correct? The rest of the app remains as it is. This functionality remains fixed, and this part is what keeps on changing. So you can add more functionality to this app, but I wanted to show you some, basic idea as to how you can do something like this, how you can have such a structure, navigation, how you can integrate an API uh, with the router, right? And how you can load data based on the route that you are at and fetch that data inside a component, and also how we can make use of the CSS in JS library, such as emotion within our React app. And yeah, so that was the basic idea. You guys can enhance this project further. That is it for this session, right? um, in case you guys have any doubts, let's meet in the Discord channel. And take care. I'll see you guys day after in the next session, that is on Monday. And have a happy weekend. Take care. Bye bye.